Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday night, and it is time for Monday Night Nerd. My name is Corp Cosplay. I'm so happy you all could be here. I'm so excited because we have got a great night ahead of us. It is a night chock full of wrestling because, well, it's WrestleMania season. It is the weekend of wrestling doing because, folks, this is probably, if not one of the best weekends of wrestling I've ever seen. I don't think that can be understated enough. I don't want to waste any more time because we got a whole lot to talk about. I'm going to go match by match through last night and Saturday, WrestleMania XL, and then we're going to go into my top 10 WrestleMania moments. WrestleMania XL, the 40th anniversary of WrestleMania. Man, let's kick things off with Saturday. Saturday, we kick things off. Opening night, huge crowd in Philadelphia at the Eagles Stadium. It was a cold night from what everyone's saying. Everyone's saying it was bloody cold. I think it was like 45 degrees Fahrenheit there, 50 degrees. It was chilly, but the crowd was electric, which was great because it was needed to keep the night rolling, even though the action was incredible. Let's start things off. Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch in the first match of the pay-per-view. Women's World Championship was on the line, and we kicked things off with an amazing performance from Motionless in White. They do Rhea Ripley's entrance theme, and they were there live, kicking things off with a bang. And when I say bang, I mean bang. They killed it. I'm not a big Motionless in White fan, but I gotta say, they did an incredible job. Brought the crowd up, brought everything going. Becky Lynch showed up with her, I don't know, her and Seth. They have the weird costumes. It's not for me. I don't think the song of especially Seth fits that image. I don't think Becky should have it either, but whatever. There's a story behind it. It's not for me. Solid opener. Becky and Rhea did an incredible job. Rhea extremely dominant. Even with her injured hand, still came in, still dominated. She ended up winning the championship, and overall, a great opening match to kick things off. Really got the crowd into it. I didn't know for sure if Rhea was going to retain because Becky was such a good champion, and with Rhea having a bad wrist, I really wasn't sure. But once I saw how well Rhea was moving in the ring and wasn't really showing any issues with her wrist, I knew she would probably hang on, and she did. Good for Rhea. The next match was something that I think a lot of people were really shocked on how well it went. It could have been a giant cluster, but it was actually pretty good. And that was the tag team title ladder match. That was DIY, New Catch Republic, New Day, who else? The Awesome Truth. Overall, an incredible match with a whole bunch of amazing teams. Sadly, I got to say DIY, New Catch Republic, and New Day were kind of forgotten, which is kind of surprising because it's not really. I thought one of them would still be. I thought it would be more of an even contest where they'd all kind of get their spotlights. Tommaso Ciampa got amazing, almost like a Death Valley driver off the ladder, which was cool, but it just wasn't. I didn't feel it was as evenly distributed showcase as I thought it would. R-Truth obviously stole the show. If you saw it, his comedy routine was absolutely perfect. I really am interested to see what they're going to do with the tag titles. They were combined with the Judgment Day, but now they are split. There's obviously going to be a Raw and a SmackDown Tag Team Champion. A-Town Down took SmackDown, and Awesome Truth took the Raw. I knew Awesome Truth was going to win, seeing as how much they've been pushing R-Truth, but seeing the way A-Town Down is done lately, I think they've got a chance of doing something really good with those tag belts. So I'm very interested in seeing where they're going to go with on SmackDown. Next match, Rey Andrade versus Escobar and Dominic. Dominic is killing it with his heel run in the Judgment Day. Ray and Dominic were the whole reason I was watching this. I'm not a giant Andrade fan. There's nothing against him. There's just something about him that sort of rubs me the wrong way. Again, I can't put my finger on what it is, but it's just something just doesn't sit right with me. But an overall amazing match. Great LWO spots. The slingshots off the ropes onto the group of them in the aisleway. Great luchador match. Obviously, Ray and Andrade won. But I think as like last year, Ray and Dominic were the showcase, and like it's hard to top such a great rivalry they'd have. I feel like Escobar and Andrade sort of got pushed to the side. Out of all the matches of 2 nights, I feel like this was the worst, which is surprising because of the history and how well these two work together as their brothers. And that was Jimmy versus Jay. The Usos come to blows at WrestleMania, and man, was I disappointed with this match. I felt turned into, as the Young Bucks like to call them, a super kick party. Just kick after kick after kick, and it felt like such a waste to me. I felt like both performers have so much more to offer, have so much potential, especially with so much history they've had. But Jimmy and Jay, it just didn't work for me, which was sad. Probably the worst match of the night, and it wasn't. I can't say it was an absolutely terrible match, but for how great the rest of the card was, this one wasn't for me. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi versus Damage Control 6-pack women's tag team match. You knew Jade Cargill was going to be the spotlight, and she was. She did an incredible job in one of her first outings with WWE. Kind of a forgettable match, though. I honestly was sitting there watching the whole thing, and I cannot remember much about it. I know the ending was Jade Cargill doing her big slam onto one of the members of, I think it was Asuka from Damage Control, and doing the pin, but that's about it. Again, solid women's match, just with how much was going on last night and how many memorable moments, it kind of got lost in the dust, which is okay because you have to have a little bit of a down match to get to the next big moment. And we got a big moment with the next one, and that was the Intercontinental title defended by Gunther versus Sammy. Gunther has been on a reign of terror, just dominating people left, right, and center. And I think a lot of people saw what was going to happen with Chad Gable and was really upset that Chad did not get his shot at WrestleMania, but Sammy did. And wow, was it worth it? It was worth the change because Sammy is such a great person to get his ass kicked. He takes a beating like no one else. And he did that throughout the match. Having Sammy's family in the front row was perfect. Seeing their faces, seeing his wife get into it. Just a great underdog story for Sami Zayn. Deserving of the win. Beat Gunther. First person to beat Gunther in I don't know how long. He has been champion forever, it seems like. But I'm glad to see Sammy win. I'm excited to see what they're going to do tonight on Raw in less than an hour, because I think this is going to be a really cool progression of this title. Last match of night one on Saturday, we had Cody versus Seth versus Roman and The Rock. This is how you set up a main event, folks. This, if you ever wanted to know anything about wrestling, this is the thing to watch. If Cody and Seth win, the Bloodline is not able to get involved the next night when Cody faces Roman for the world title. If Roman and Rock win, it is Bloodline rules, which means anything can happen. The biggest problem with this match was the entrances. The entrances took forever. I think 4 people entered, and it took about 36 minutes. They really milked it. Rock, I don't care what anyone says. He is a beast in the ring. His new Hollywood persona is amazing. The stuff he's doing on social media to build this rivalry was perfect. Overall, it was a great tag team match. Obviously, Rock and Roman won, which means night 2, Cody versus Roman for the title was going to be bloodline rules. It showed the heartbreak of Cody losing again at WrestleMania, but you knew that if that happened, there would be a beautiful moment the next night. And folks, it was. Night one was incredible. I was in Buffalo with some friends watching it, and we were honestly thinking we had seen the highlight of the weekend, but man, were we completely wrong. Night two started Sunday, and it kicked off with a bang. It kicked off with Seth versus Drew for the World Heavyweight Championship. Seth Rollins was in the match the night before against Rock and Roman and was feeling the effects of getting his butt kicked all over the ring. And it ended up Drew winning the World Championship, the first time he's won it since the pandemic. Yes, for those who don't know, Drew McIntyre was the world champion. He won it from Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 36, I believe it was. But that was during the pandemic. There was no fans there to celebrate with. So he's been pushing to win, and he finally won it in front of fans. However, there was a straight edge commentator at the commentary booth, and Drew's had a rivalry with Mr. CM Punk the past little while because Drew McIntyre took CM Punk with a legit injury now. So Punk was doing commentary, and Drew was poking the bear, and Punk had enough and gave Drew a little bit of a butt kicking. And all of a sudden, Damian Priest from the Judgment Day comes running out. He was the Money in the Bank winner last year. With that Money in the Bank, he can cash it in for a world title shot anytime he feels like it. And after long anticipation, he took full advantage of it, and it was a great win. He beat Drew, and now Damian Priest is the new World Heavyweight Champion, which is incredible. The smile on Punk's face and how much fun he was having is great. I can't wait for him to get back from injury so I can see what he's going to do with Drew and Priest and Rollins, and all of those four guys are going to do some great matches in the future. The Pride versus the Final Testament in a street fight. You always got to have a match like this, and it did not disappoint. I feel like this, like the tag match the night before, it could really become a cluster, and a lot of stuff can be missed, but they did a great job. Having Mr. Bubba Ray Dudley as the special referee was hilarious. His little beef with Karrion Kross during the match was very, very fun. Putting on the Dudley Boy glasses and sort of helping the Pride with the waz up off the top rope was great. Snoop Dogg being on commentary, I was really worried. Anytime we get someone who's a celebrity who may know wrestling, may not know wrestling, having them be the voice sort of wrestling for a few minutes during a match, it really worries me because there's not many who know how to do it. Snoop Dogg did a very, very good job. He was very entertaining. He knew when to talk. He knew when to keep quiet. It was a good job on Snoop. I'd actually watch him do a couple more matches if they had him. But yeah, good tag match, good hardcore match with a whole bunch of weapons and people going through tables. Next, we had LA Knight versus AJ Styles. This one I thought would be a sleeper, and it kind of was. It was kind of a letdown match, which was okay. Like I said earlier, you have to have that little bit of a roller coaster. It makes things flow a lot better. Good solid match between the two. AJ is jacked out of his head since he came back. He looks in phenomenal shape. LA has got the crowd wrapped around his finger. Solid match. I'm glad LA Knight won because I feel like what they've been doing with LA Knight has been great, but I feel like he's being overshadowed with people returning like Punk and the Cody Rhodes storyline, but it's good to see him get a win at WrestleMania. The last of the three final matches, Logan Paul versus Randy Orton versus KO. A highlight match of the weekend, folks. If you have any preconceived notion of what Logan Paul used to be like, folks, he is a changed man, and he is an incredible wrestler. Defending his U.S. championship was great. He is such a good heel. Randy and KO doing a great job, comedy spots, beating the crap out of Logan Paul. Logan's very similar to Sami Zayn. He can take a butt kicking and looks hilarious doing it. Randy, he's almost flawless at this point. KO, just as good. Um, I'm glad they're keeping the belt on Logan Paul. I think he is very good as a cocky champion heel. Having the Prime bottles all over the place, having the Prime bottle logo in the ring on the pads. It was really fun because you just knew he was so happy, and it looked so good with him being a cocky heel, knowing he was kind of taking over WrestleMania for the weekend. Second last main event, it was Io Sky versus Bayley for the women's championship. Bayley is one of the best women wrestlers in the company right now. Seeing her get a moment of beating Io Sky, the storyline was kind of meh. Io Sky betraying her after a long friendship. We see this stuff all the time in wrestling, so I wasn't really too thrilled about it, but still a great match. Bayley, always a great underdog, coming out. Finally, I never realized this till they mentioned on commentary. This is her first one-on-one match at a WrestleMania. She has been in a lot of three-way matches, a lot of tag matches. This was her first one-on-one match, and she took full advantage of it. They were saying, Triple H was saying at the press conference after that, the entire women's division was back there celebrating with her as she walked through the curtain. So that's great to hear. Io Sky was a great champion. She was very strong in this match. She honestly looked like she was going to take it from a couple moments, but overall, a great match. Glad to see Bayley as the new women's champ. Now we get into the main event, and I said in the pre-show, and I will say it here, folks. If you are a wrestling fan, if you're not a wrestling fan, if you were a wrestling fan, this is the time to watch wrestling, because it is, as they've said multiple times throughout the weekend, this is a new era in WWE. And when I say this main event was one of the best main events you've ever seen, that is an understatement to say the least. The build that this has had for years now was well worth it. I know back last year, everyone thought Cody was going to beat Roman, but man, they said just wait, and by God, they were right. The ending of this match, yeah, there was a bunch of run-ins, cameos from John Cena, cameos from The Undertaker, cameos from Rock, was absolutely phenomenally booked, phenomenally shot. Having it end with simply Cody and Roman in the ring with a perfect 3 count was jaw-dropping. If you watch any reactions from people who cover wrestling, who are watching it live, shooting it from the crowd, everybody had tears in their eyes at the end, and I will fully admit I was right along with them. I was so happy to see the ending, and I think Triple H talked about it later, that it's really hard to make a good guy nowadays because everybody's got that little bit of cynical side of them where, you kind of like cheering the bad guy because you wish you were him and all, but man, Cody is taking over the world, and seeing him tribute to his dad, having his mom in the ring, the history with that, calling out Triple H, saying it wasn't for him, he wouldn't be here. Yeah, I think I was like everyone else. I was crying at the end because it was such a perfect way to end the pay-per-view. And the whole reason I am doing this 1 hour early tonight is so I can watch Monday Night Raw tonight live. I have not watched Monday Night Raw live in probably 5 years. And I've not watched it regularly for probably a decade. But I knew that I needed to watch it tonight because the Raw after WrestleMania is usually a big usually a big thing. There's usually a lot of people coming up from the NXT roster. New storylines are built, so I knew I had to watch it tonight. So that is the reason why I'm starting the show a little early tonight. Where do I rank WrestleMania XL? Man, if it is not a top 3, it's a top 2. Honestly, I've been a fan since '97. You could probably define me as a historian. I could tell you left, right, and center almost everything that happens in every WrestleMania, and I can barely think of any WrestleMania that was better than this. They knocked it out of the park, and they deserve everything they get for how great of a 2-night event this was. Maybe one bad match, but overall, incredible. I can't say enough good things about it, and I'm so excited to be downstairs watching Raw for the first time and actually being very excited to watch Raw in about 5 years, if not 10. So thank you, WWE, for an incredible pay-per-view. I hope, we were kind of talking about it on Saturday of, how expensive it is to go see WrestleMania. And I think the last time I went to a pay-per-view was SummerSlam in Toronto. I want to say 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It was before the pandemic. And it was fun, but I was kind of like, meh. Honestly, if WrestleMania was announced tonight that it was coming to Canada in the next year or two, I'd probably be getting tickets because they've brought me back as a fan. So I'm excited. I'm excited for tonight. That is all for my review of WrestleMania, folks. If you haven't watched it, figure out a way to watch it. Go watch clips online. It was a great night. Let's jump into the sponsor quickly, and then we're going to do the top 10 WrestleMania moments, and then I'm going to get you guys out of here because I got to get out of here because I got to go watch Raw. Sponsor for tonight, as always, my lovely, beautiful, amazing wife. Hun, you know how incredible you are. I say it every single week. It is absolutely the truth. I love you. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for supporting me in this. You will always be my number one sponsor. Thank you for letting me watch wrestling and not make fun of me for it, even though you are not a fan. Thank you. Love you. You'll always be my sponsor. Let's go through my top 10 WrestleMania moments. As I said before, I am what you would call, I guess, a historian. I started watching wrestling in 97, and I'm the type of person, when I become a fan of something, I want to know everything about everything about everything. I have seen every single WrestleMania multiple times. I still listen to wrestling podcasts. I am a hardcore wrestling fan. I have pretty much been a hardcore wrestling fan since I was 9 years old. So I have seen every WrestleMania. I can tell you I have my favorites, and you can probably tell once we get into some of these that it was around the time I was a hardcore fan or when my memories are. Let's go through a little bit of details, though. These are not the top 10 ever, because that's completely subjective. These are my top 10 moments, what made the most impact to me. Because, again, I could go through a billion different moments, and everyone else would have a different list. These are the ones that impacted me the most when I saw them, gave me the most emotional response, etc. There's a lot of these that are matches, because there are some that are moments, but there's a lot of these are matches, because it's hard to be like when Undertaker chokeslammed Shawn in WrestleMania 25. Like, it's hard to do a specific moment of a match. There's a lot of matches overall that you could just say, yeah, they were incredible, and they are my top 10 from top to bottom. These were the best moments. These are things that are not on the list, and these could come as a bit of a surprise for some. Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon from WrestleMania 10, the ladder match, is not on my list, because when I first started watching wrestling and I went back and wanted to watch old wrestling, I actually saw the 95 SummerSlam first, the rematch first, before I saw the original. I rented the VHS when I was a kid, so that match actually holds more sentimentality than the WrestleMania match. I love the WrestleMania match, but to me, that's the sequel. So I understand that's on most people's list. It's not on mine. A lot of these, well, to be fair, anything prior to WrestleMania 6. Like I said, I've seen all the WrestleManias. It is a very different style of WrestleMania pre-WrestleMania 6 in Toronto. A lot of Hogan, a lot of slow matches, a lot of long pay-per-views. So that's not my era. I appreciate it. I love it. There won't be anything from 1 to 6. One of the important things to know is that when I was a kid, I wanted to watch all the WrestleManias. I wanted to learn so much about it. That was not the type of thing that you can easily do now. Now you can go on the WWE Network or Peacock or wherever you are, and you can watch any WrestleMania you want at the click of a button. That was not a thing when I was a kid. We had VHS. We didn't even have DVD. And what I got was the best of WrestleMania VHS. That was an hour-long VHS that spanned from 1 to 14. So that's how I got a lot of my knowledge from the early WrestleManias that I wasn't around for. After 14 was when I regularly started to watch them. So I have, my feelings on those because I saw them live. Again, that's another reason why 1 to 6 are kind of not my wheelhouse because they weren't me. Let's kick things off with an obvious one. This is probably not on anyone. Well, it could be on others, but it's not on a lot of people's, but it is for me. And that is because I was at WrestleMania XL. Oh, and by the way, these are not in any order. These are just top 10. There's no 1 to 10. I was at WrestleMania X8. I saw it live in Toronto in the Sky Dome. This is my number 1 because I was there. It's also probably high on a lot of people's list because of that match. Rock and Hogan was unbelievable. I did not appreciate it as much when I saw it live because I'm a Rock fan. You can ask the people I saw WrestleMania with on the weekend. I was decked out in my Rock Under Armour gear. Everybody at this show was cheering Hogan, though. So I kind of felt like an outcast, and I felt weird. So I didn't really enjoy this match as much as I should have. I love it now. Overall, the card was stacked. Triple H versus Jericho in the main event for the WWE Championship. 3-way Women's Championship match. Trish, Jazz, Lita. You had, what else? Oh my God. You had DDP versus Christian in a great European title match. You had William Regal versus Rob Van Dam in the opening Intercontinental title match. You had, what else? You had the tag team titles with Billy and Chuck, Dudley's, Edge and Christian. Like it was an overall stocked card. I know people have a sentimentality to 17. So do I, but I was at this one, so it makes things a little different. Trying to think. Also, as a new metal fan, also got to see Saliva and Drowning Pool perform at this show. So I got to see Saliva do the opening theme, and I got to see Drowning Pool do Triple H's theme. So got to see 2 bands too that I'm actually a big fan of. So X8 always will be my number 1, but let's get that out of the way. Number 2, WrestleMania 14. Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin with Mike Tyson as the special referee. This holds a special place in my heart because this was my first WrestleMania as a fan. This was the moment where the Stone Cold Steve Austin explosion started. I started watching in 97, SummerSlam 97. That was Brett Taker, Shawn rivalry started. And then Shawn started to grow and more and more and more. And then this was the first WrestleMania after that. Having someone like a Steve Austin, being a fan of him, being a fan of Shawn Michaels, having them collide in your first WrestleMania was so good. You've got Mike Tyson, who was the baddest man on the planet at the time and was a figurehead of controversy, got so many eyeballs onto this pay-per-view that probably would not have been there. Later on, understanding the predicament that Shawn Michaels was in, if you're not aware, 2 months before this, Shawn Michaels had a match with The Undertaker. It was a casket match where you had to throw your opponent into the casket. The casket was set up next to ringside. Shawn Michaels goes head over heels over the top rope and hits his lower back on the edge of the casket. And almost destroys his back. It looks so minimal, but he said, and it was documented, that he had trouble even walking the next couple days. So knowing how bad his back is going into this, seeing that the wincing every time he hits his back is legit. He is legit hurt, and this is his last match before he goes away, gets surgery, and comes back a few years later as the reborn Shawn Michaels. Incredible. Stone Cold was the top of his game. It was the perfect match for him. The only qualm I have about this is, and I think a lot of people agree, Mike Tyson comes in for that 3 count at the end, and it is a quick count. It should have been a little slower. I think Austin also agrees with that. But yeah, a solid main event, and my first WrestleMania main event. So this will always hold a special place in my heart, because as good old JR says at the end of this match, the Austin era has begun. You will see a little bit of a trend of what people are in these matches and who I'm a fan of. The next one, we're going back a year, WrestleMania 13, Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. The double turn that was it was such beautiful artistry between two amazing wrestlers. You had the babyface at the time, Bret Hart, and the heel Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was attacking Bret every moment he could. Bret trying to, be the honorable babyface, but you knew the crowd was starting to feel for Austin and getting behind the Austin 316. Go into this match, and you've got two amazing performers putting on a hell of a match. And folks, let's not forget, this is a submission match. This is a match that shouldn't have worked as well as it had, because Bret Hart is the technical submission expert, but Austin's a brawler. So on paper, it doesn't work. But folks, this is an incredible match. Go check it out. This is one of the best. This is probably on the top 3-5 of almost any wrestling fan. Having someone also like a former UFC champion, soon to be pro wrestler, soon to be future Intercontinental and Tag Team champion, Ken Shamrock, as the special referee in one of his first appearances, just added so much legitimacy, very similar to the Mike Tyson of 14. You had someone who actually looked and you knew could stand up to Law and Order if needed to. A long match, but a very good match overall. And the shot of Steve in the sharpshooter at the end, not giving up, passing out from the pain, Bret winning, but then at the end doing a couple kicks to the leg and cementing that role of him being the heel and, still being this is the best part though. It's not the kick that sells it. He does a couple kicks to his leg, but when Shamrock steps in, Bret backs off. That little bit of a chicken heel was perfect for Bret. Austin leaves under his own accord, bloodied. The Austin Starship is now in orbit, and by next year, it is his era. It's his decade to rule the WWE. We have to go back now one more year. I mentioned a long match. We have to go back to one of the most iconic shots in my head. When you say, give me one photo from a WrestleMania that just stands out as the match, this is it. Bret versus Shawn in the Iron Man match from WrestleMania 12. There were so many people who look at this as the best WrestleMania match, because these are two people who are at the top of their game, showcasing their art as wrestlers for a whole hour-long match, which to some people is torture, but to a wrestling fan who knows what they're watching, this is, as Bret says, he likes to create art in the ring, and this was a masterpiece of a match. Starting off with even just the hype packages, showing the training regimen of each one, showing Shawn Michaels literally on a pull-up bar upside down on the pull-up bar doing push-ups, vertical push-ups against a wall, having Brett do a Rocky style running through the snow of Calgary, Alberta. It just showed two different competitors with two different training styles getting ready to collide. Brett coming out very traditional with the World Championship, and Sean coming down on a zip line from the top of the Anaheim Pond, swinging down, was an incredible moment. Anytime you see any WrestleMania footage, that shot is usually sprinkled in somewhere. I know some people have a problem with the length because it's an hour. I get it. I don't. I think it's a great match. I, again, am from that generation. I did start watching a little bit later, but I'm a giant Brett fan. I'm a giant Shawn fan. I'm such a giant Shawn fan. Those white tights that he's wearing, I have chalk line version of those. I have track pants that are a copy of those pants because this match was just incredible. And stupidly, I picked the white pair, so I barely wear them because I know they're just going to get dirty. But yeah, this was an incredible match. Going an hour long was perfect. Doing no falls throughout the entire match was even better because you had Brett showcasing that chicken shit heel a little bit, finishing the match, walking towards the aisle, and then President Gorilla Monsoon coming out and saying there must be a winner. This is going to sudden death. Brett complaining, coming into the match again. Shawn hitting the super kick. 1, 2, 3. A childhood dream has been realized. Shawn Michaels with his first world championship. An incredible match that any real wrestling fan will understand why it is such a good match. This match is going to be some controversy behind it because I feel like people will say, why am I not picking another one? These two people fought 3 times at WrestleMania, and I'm sorry, this is the best. This is, let me try that again. This is Mr. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Rock, and this is WrestleMania 19. This is not WrestleMania 17. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, why not 17? That's the one everyone remembers. That ending hurts me, where Steve decides to turn heel and join Vince McMahon. That ruined it for me. This match was their best, in my opinion, because this was Steve Austin's last regular match in the WWE. This was Rock coming back from Hollywood, being the Hollywood star from the Scorpion King, and he's coming back to finally beat Steve. This is their 3rd match together. Steve has won twice. The Rock needs to beat Stone Cold. We kind of knew, or at least I kind of knew, that this was Austin's last match. I'd heard rumblings that this was going to be it. So going into it, I had the emotion of what this meant, that this was Austin's last match because of his bad neck. But still, even though it was his last match, it was a clinic and a half for the Texas Rattlesnake. They knocked it out of the park. There's nothing else to say besides they knocked it out of the park. Rock ended up winning, breaks the 2-0 streak with a now 2-1 against Steve. Knowing again what this meant, that this was the last time you were going to see Stone Cold Steve Austin in regular, a regular run, not coming back for special occasions. There's nothing else to say. It was an emotional night. I know WWE put together a sort of a mini documentary surrounding this whole event. It's on YouTube, I believe. Go check it out if you've not seen it before, if you're an Austin or a Rock fan. It shows the emotion. It shows Austin had some medical issues before that night because he was so worried and upset about making sure it was a good match. Go check it out. Overall, like I said, this is my favorite Austin Rock competition. Next, we're going to go into a little bit of what I said earlier during the WrestleMania XL pay-per-view review. This is a bit of a cluster, but it is honestly the first cluster and it beats anyone after. And that is the triangle ladder match, the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. Folks, this is what made a lot of people wrestling fans back in the 2000s. WrestleMania 2000. Oh, where can I start with this? This was the showcase of what three teams can do when you just say go nuts. The Dudleys having their history from ECW. You've got the two Canadian boys, Edge and Christian, wanting to showcase their dominance of the tag team division at that point. They have been doing so well as tag team champions. I think they were two-time tag champs by this point. And Matt and Jeff Hardy. Jeff the Daredevil, this was the first time where a lot of people saw Jeff as like, this guy likes to jump off high shit. And this was a match that made me and a lot of other kids my age fans of the Hardys, because you saw Jeff doing crazy stuff. You saw Matt doing crazy stuff. I think all of us wanted to have table and ladders and chairs in every match after this. Some people could see that as a negative because of what has happened with the industry, where some fans feel like if that stuff's not involved, it's not a good match. But I feel this is the best one of all these matches. They fought multiple times after this. Edge and Christian and the Hardys fought for the tag belts a few months earlier at No Mercy. That was the first time this type of thing happened. And then after this, we had TLC 1 at SummerSlam, TLC 2 at WrestleMania X7, TLC 3, 4, 5, 7, all the rest of the TLCs, including now a pay-per-view called TLC. But this was incredible. Edge and Christian showcased their dominance, like I said, of winning the tag belts. They won the tag belts another X number of times. The Hardys, again, showcasing their death-defying feats, but never winning the belts and stuff like this. They won the first one at No Mercy, but after that, they never won again. The Dudleys also, I think if the Dudleys came in and didn't do this and didn't have such a great run with these two other teams, it's hard to see them being as successful in WWE as they were. I feel like this really helped them, just like the other two teams, catapult them into the mainstream. And let's not forget that Jeff Hardy spot at the end, jumping off the ladder, was just absolutely insane. Again, he's jumped off 50 billion other things, but I feel like that was something that stood out for a lot of people. And I think, especially me, after I saw this, I wanted to go out and get the toys. I searched everywhere for a Jeff Hardy figure. I searched for ladders, and I just wanted to do TLC matches after this. This is the next one, and this could be controversial, and I don't mean that in a you might not like the match. This involves someone that I know a lot of wrestling fans have problems with because of what happened in the end. But truly, this moment meant so much to me as a wrestling fan, and it just makes it worse because of where we would end up only 3 years later. And that is this moment from WrestleMania 20. Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero ending up as champions. As a wrestling fan, I really thought this was a moment that was going to take us into the next generation of wrestling. These were two guys from WCW who no one really cared about. They were put in the mid-card. They were never going to be world champions. They came to WWE in 99-2000, and they worked their butts off. Eddie has obviously had some history with drug abuse. He is at this point, he had recovered. He had gone to sobriety, and it was one of the first times I really got emotionally invested into a moment. Actually, I'm starting to get a little teary-eyed thinking about it now, because like this was a magical moment as a wrestling fan. I remember being at my friend Kurt's place, and we were all like, this is the future. Like Benoit and Eddie are going to pave the path for the next decade of wrestlers. And this was March 04. And by November 05, Eddie had passed away from a heart attack. And by June 2007, the horrible, horrible Chris Benoit incident happened. So within 3 years of this moment, they're both gone. And Eddie had his demons that, you know, his body couldn't hold out any longer. And, you know, like I said, the tragedy of Chris and his family was, you know, a very dark spot as a wrestling fan. But this moment was great. You know, there's, like I said, last night was a similar moment where it was, you really got sucked into that moment of emotion. And sadly, this one was one of the first, and it didn't end well. 3 more matches left. We're on match 7, or match 8, I should say. And we are looking at, oh, it's also that photo was just, man, that sucks. Anyways, WrestleMania 25, Shawn versus Taker in the modern era. We'll call it the PG era. I don't know if it's the Ruthless Aggression era, whatever you want to call it. For two people who were in the, I don't want to say end of their careers, because yes, Shawn was one more year before he was retired, but Undertaker had a few more after this. This was almost a perfect match. Like, really, this was almost a perfect match. There was so many OMG moments that I don't think anyone was expecting it to be as good as it was. They had fought, Taker and Shawn had fought back in 97 when I started. This was probably, honestly, this would be my first rivalry when I was a wrestling fan back in 97, when Shawn cost Taker the world title against Bret in SummerSlam. Then we went into Backlash. We went into Bad Blood and the Royal Rumble and all that. This was my first big rivalry, and this was a return to it, 20 years later almost. And I was worried. I got to admit, I was thinking, is this going to hold up? Is this going to be something that, am I going to look at and go, man, it's not 97 anymore? But no, they've gotten so much better in that time frame. Again, it was almost a flawless match. There were flaws, obviously. The cameraman spot, Taker jumps over the top rope, and the cameraman was supposed to catch him, and he doesn't, and Taker almost lands directly on his head. Definitely a spot that I don't think Taker wants to really relive. But yeah, great moment. Shawn bouncing around the ring like a champion. Taker winning. This was one of the few, they've teased Taker losing that streak, and of course he does later to Brock. But this was one of the first ones where we watched and went, Shawn could beat him, and this could be the end of the streak. I'm glad it wasn't. Part of me wishes it was, for the way it actually ended, but no, it was an incredible match. Taker beating Shawn. This one's obviously better than the rematch the next year, which is Shawn's last regular match in the WWE. The next one's as good, probably close to as good, but this one, I think because we weren't expecting it to be as good as it was, but it was, and it was a highlight for sure. 2 more, man, this one, Edge versus Foley at WrestleMania 22. Folks, you want to see a hardcore match that, again, on paper does not look like it should be as good. This is it. Like, what are we talking about here? Mick Foley, who's never really had a main event. He was in WrestleMania 2000, but he didn't have a moment of his coming back out of retirement and facing Edge, the rated R superstar, with Lita. Yeah, folks, if you're wondering, is that what I think it is in the corner? Yes, that is. That is Edge spearing Mick Foley through a flaming table. That's exactly what you think it is. That is not photoshopped. Mick Foley taking barbed wire shots. Edge taking thumbtacks to the back and the arm. this was better than anyone ever thought it could be. This cemented Edge as I don't just main eventer is not the right word because he'd already been world champion, but cementing him as a tough man, a real tough Canadian boy. This is Mick Foley's moment. This is Edge's moment, and Edge had many amazing WrestleMania moments, but I think this stands out as the one. This is how a hardcore match should be done properly, in my opinion. It wasn't too much gratuitous. For folks wondering, yes, after that spear, that was the end of the match. They didn't keep going like some do nowadays. But yeah, it was a credible moment for Mick and for Edge. Again, similar to Shawn and Taker at 25, I don't think anyone thought this would be as good as it was. And it was. It was absolutely incredible. Edge looks back at it as one of his favorites, and so does Mick. So I think this will be on a lot of people's. And last but not least, this was a match that as a kid, I went back and watched, and the moment I saw this image on its own, I said, this is a sport, this is an entertainment form, whatever you want to call it, where superheroes are real. And that is Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. This is a photo that lives in my mind rent-free, because I saw these two guys were just like, what the hell is this? I was a hardcore Warrior fan growing up, and Warrior's got his problems, which a lot of people know about. He's sadly no longer with us. In fact, today is, I think, the 10-year anniversary of him passing away, which is sad to think about. I remember seeing this match, and I saw a good amount of clips of it on the Best of WrestleMania VHS that I talked about originally, and I ended up going to the video store that's around the corner from my house, and I rented WrestleMania 6 because I wanted to watch the whole thing. And as I was watching it, I was getting so excited. I was such a big fan at the time that I grabbed my green marker and my pink marker, and I painted the Warrior face paint on myself in the basement and was wrestling my stuffed animals, playing wrestler. And the thing I didn't realize was the markers I used were permanent. So I had that Warrior face paint on a lot longer than I wanted. Thankfully, it wasn't on there for a few days like I had to go to school with it on, but there was definitely a lot of scrubbing with pads to try and get that marker off my face. My face was beet red by the time I was done. I remember that. But yeah, these are two comic book characters come to life. Seeing them stand in front of each other in Toronto, of all places, was so cool to see as a kid. It really got me interested in that era of wrestling. Sadly, anything before this, there wasn't much. I know that I'm a Macho Man fan. I like the old school wrestlers just as much as the new guys, but there was something about these two colliding that just was a different beast. And the ending was great too. The ending was great. You know, I think if you listen to the crowd, it's a pretty good 50-50 split. You've got your Warrior fans, you've got your Hogan fans, but you could tell there's a little bit more Warrior because we'd had Hogan for so long. And the ending with Warrior, clean victory over Hogan, the first person to beat Hogan in years, was great. It was a great match. It was a great big man match. And I know a lot of people like the smaller guys now that jump around all over the place, which is great. I love them too. But just seeing two, like I said, cartoon characters just slamming into each other was pretty cool for a kid my age. And like I said, it brought me in even more, made me way more interested in the older generation than just the current generation. Folks, that is it for the night. That is my top 10 WrestleMania moments. I would love to know what yours are. Thank you all for watching. I put it in the comments. I want to see what your top 5, 3, 10, if you want to do. You want to do 50, go for it. Tell me what your favorite WrestleMania moments are. If you haven't already, please click the link hit the like button, comments, share, subscribe, all those things. It means the world to me. Hope you all enjoy Raw tonight. I will be enjoying it. Next week will be my last live show before I leave for vacation. I don't have 100% idea of what it is going to be. I'm going to put a poll on Instagram in the next day or two. I want to know what you guys want to see on the show. I want to know if I should be covering more wrestling, if I should cover more cosplay, if I should cover movies, comics, all that stuff, because I want to show stuff that I like and I want to show stuff that you like. So I'll put that up in the next little while. But folks, have yourselves a great night. Thank you all for watching. I will see you all next week for the newest episode of Monday Night Nerd. I love you all. I'll see you then. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.